Senator Hewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So how do we decide what are the essentials? Senator Morrell, there's baby food's an essential item. Is that tax exempt?
I do not believe so, but I can check. If you believe it's an essential item, you could always author a bill to exempt it.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning the other direction. I mean, I think that from a tax policy standpoint, I think we're making things more complicated by adding more and more exemptions. And so I'm not sure that I completely understand the definition of what's essential.
I would deem that baby food, I would argue, is in a different category, but one can take existing food, which is tax exempt, and turn it into baby food. One cannot make, I guess one could make homemade tampons. I don't think that would go very well.
It wouldn't, but you could use cloth diapers like we did back in the day.
And cloth diapers would also be exempt under this legislation. So, if your suggestion is that poor women should go make their own cloth diapers, I think that is a position. I don't think it's a realistic position considering my wife and I actually did cloth. The amount of money you have to pay for the chemicals, additional items to sanitize cloth diapers, to make them available to be used on children without creating rashes and the like, is very expensive. Honestly, if you did all the things required to do cloth diapers and maintain them and measured it with disposable is measurably cheaper. So, though cloth diapers are better for the environment, mind you, like many organic things, it's not the cheaper alternative. And I think that part of this goal is that, I don't know if the Junior League is here today, the Junior League of Louisiana has diaper banks in each city. And they give away, in metropolitan areas, over 400,000 diapers a year. There's obviously a need where people are not able to afford diapers and are forced to go to a bank to buy them. And let's be honest, diapers are expensive. And for a poor family, although for many of us, $4 or $5 in sales tax is not a lot, for a poor family, $4 or $5 sends them to the diaper bank. And the reality is, if we've already described, I hate to use this analogy, because the one I use all the time, if we think Viagra should be tax exempt, how can we say diapers and tampons shouldn't be? And like I said, this is not a statutory exemption where the legislature is picking winners and losers. We're putting it for the people of Louisiana to make that determination for themselves. So if they believe that this is an essential item, they get to weigh in on it. If they believe it isn't, then they get to say it's not. So, I hear you. I think we have a difference of opinion on this, but I think the people of Louisiana should be the final authority to make that determination. And as the chairman said, I think, and Senator Barrow said, there's literally no opposition to this bill. Even when we're doing other exemptions, someone shows up and goes, no, I don't think you should do this. There's literally no opposition to this bill. Except for you. Sorry.
You might just cause me to oppose it just so we can see.
Okay. Appreciate it.
When you look at the money that we're talking about here, we're talking about on feminine hygiene products, just based on the fiscal note, you're talking about a savings in state sales tax of 27 cents per month.
If your argument is that people are paying enough in taxes on this item, I would argue that we have a fundamental disagreement on when in the state should and should not tax. As I said, I think the real savings in this bill is probably on the diapers, to be honest. But at the end of the day, like I said, my position has always been consistently on taxation, that when it comes to items that are deemed essential, like prescription drugs, that is the reason why they're put in our Constitution, because we have decided that as a legislature and as a people of the state of Louisiana, this essential product should not be taxed because it should be treated like other essential items. You cannot operate in society without diapers and without feminine hygiene products. It is not possible. And if they're essential items, the people of Louisiana should have the opportunity to vote and decide whether they agree that's essential. Otherwise, it'd be a statutory exemption, which I did not go that route because
we're not brave enough to pass it.
Well, I did not say it. But what I will say is this: nationally, throughout the entire United States, there is a bipartisan effort to address this issue because many legislatures also agree these are essential items. And in states where they have prescription drugs as an exempt item, they're across the country also putting especially feminine hygiene products in because it is an essential item. You cannot operate in society without feminine hygiene products.
And maybe we do differ just in our overall philosophy about whether essential items should be tax exempt or not.
I think that's probably fair.
And the definition of an essential item. So yes, I do agree that these are essential items. I think there's lots of essential items, and I don't know where you draw the line.
Well, I think we agree that we disagree on what's essential. I think that this is a pretty bright line.
A pretty what?
Pretty bright line as far as what's essential. I mean, when I think of an essential item, the two criteria I personally use is one, would you consider someone able to operate in polite society without it? And two, is there an alternative, a cheaper alternative, or an alternative at all? When it comes, like you said, baby food, you can literally mash your own baby food if necessary. You can make your own baby food, and some food is tax exempt. So I could argue that's already covered. You can't make your own tampons. And as I stated previously, for those of you who have bothered to attempt to use cloth diapers, ultimately they end up being more expensive than the disposable alternative. And if you talk to anyone who deals with, I know many of you have grandchildren, many of you have children. Diapers are not cheap. They are essential, and you cannot operate without them. And as I said previously, feminine hygiene products, you cannot operate without those as well.
Yeah, I think the challenge with doing it through a constitutional amendment is that you're not asking the people for the $9 million less in state revenue, what are you going to cut?
Well, considering this will go into effect in 2021, according to REC, we should have a $120 million surplus in 2021, so I don't think he'll be cutting anything.
Well, you know as well as I do that the forecast changes considerably, even from week to week. I don't believe you can count on that several years out from now.
We can have this argument, but REC is usually off by 5%. You would need it to be significantly off by more than 5% for this not to fall in a surplus year. Now, that does not stop the legislature at some point between now and then for breaking the budget, but you can't budget for the Louisiana legislature breaking the budget, or else we wouldn't do much in this building.
No further questions.
All right. Senator Hewitt?
Thank you. So, according to the fiscal note, the state would be saving, the family would be saving 65 cents a week by not paying the state sales tax.
In my opinion, I think it would be more than that.
I think it would be more than that, too. I mean, a pack of, when my son was in diapers, we went through a pack every 2 weeks, and a small box of diapers is easily $25, and the state sales tax on that obviously is more than 65 cents a week. So maybe the person who wrote the fiscal note has not had children since the 80s, but that number is way off.
So if that number's way off, then the $9.6 million is way off. It's been understated also then. It
could be, but what I would say is this, Senator Hewitt, is that, like I said, this goes to a vote of the people. The people will determine it, and also, because of our own REC forecast, this will not result in the deficit to the budget. But as I said, I think we have a fundamental disagreement on whether or not it's an essential item worthy of going to the public to be voted upon, and I don't know how to resolve that today.
And I guess I'm trying to talk about, I know diapers are expensive, and I can appreciate that. I'm just not sure that the saving the state sales tax is a game changer for those families, either with the diapers or the feminine hygiene products. I don't know that that's going to make it any more affordable.
I think that if your position is it's not enough money to be worth it, I think that if you were to put yourselves in the shoe of a poor family trying to scrounge together the dollars to pay for things and make ends meet, I think you're not adequately putting yourself in their shoes. Also, additionally, I would simply state that at the end of the day, we did not make that same argument on prescription drugs, because when you look at generic drugs and what actually the copay is on it, generic drugs, in my opinion, are cheaper than diapers. And yet we determined as a state that we were not charged sales tax on generic drugs. I know for many of you who are on my blood pressure medication that I pay has a copay of $8. I pay that every 2 months, which means that the savings on that is pretty minuscule, but we determined as a state that prescription drugs are an essential item. We allowed the citizens of Louisiana to vote on that, and they agreed that that's an essential item. And I think if we were arguing as to whether or not it should be a statutory exemption, I think that there would be more merit to that argument. We're simply allowing the voters to determine if they agree that it's an essential item or not. They may not.
Can I speak? Statistically, 25 diapers a week are what a family is short and cannot afford, which is what the diaper bank tries to provide for these families. So actually, the sales tax that they would save on that at least reduces that number to probably about half of what they're saving. So that's at least, it's something. You know, every little bit helps, and she can bring her kids, she can bring those packs to daycare, she can go to work. It becomes a vicious socioeconomic cycle if she can't provide diapers for daycare, because daycares do not take cloth diapers. Then if she cannot provide diapers for daycare, her kid cannot go to daycare, she's at home not working, and it becomes a very vicious poverty cycle.
And I'd like to also add, as an important point, ultimately, like I said, this goes to a vote of the people. They'll determine whether or not it's appropriate. When you talk about the state determining what its priorities are, what we put into the moral document that is our Constitution, we have established in the state, and I'm looking at Senator Tarver because he tells me every day that we are all about the babies, right? We're all about the babies. If we're all about the babies, making sure that the babies have diapers is very important. You can't really say you're about the babies, but diapers aren't essential. But like I said, I appreciate and acknowledge we have a fundamental disagreement on the essential nature of diapers and tampons. We have a fundamental disagreement on whether or not a savings will help a family. But I think that at the very least it's appropriate of a larger debate on the Senate floor. The constitutional amendment's a very high hurdle. Obviously, you need a 2/3 vote. And I think that it's important for us to allow that debate to take place. And I think, Mr. Chairman, that I've addressed the issue as far as why I think it's different than other items that typically are stacked.
Senator Hewitt, you wish the floor on the bill? Come on down.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to say to our colleague, Senator Morell, and I mean this really sincerely, that I appreciate your strong record in the Senate of advocating on women's issues, many issues. I think you will have left a legacy of advocating for women, and I mean that really from my heart. On this particular issue, though, I rise against this, and it really is for the fiscal reasons. We're not talking about diapers and feminine hygiene products in this bill. We're talking about the state sales tax on those items. And while I appreciate how expensive they are, especially for folks that are struggling to make ends meet, again, we're talking about the sales tax on those items. So, using the fiscal note, the savings for women using feminine hygiene products is 27 cents a month. 27 cents a month is what they would save if they were sales tax exempt. And for families with children in diapers, they will save 65 cents a week. That's not a lot of money, and I don't think it's a game changer. And I do appreciate, again, and understand the expense of the diapers. It's staggering when you have children in diapers. But I think when you offset that and you compare that to the cost to the state of $9.6 million and the great needs of this state and the money that we could be talking about in years to come about how to spend it, I just don't think that this is a good way to go. So I'm not going to support this bill.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would encourage you just to listen to me for 1 second. I know there's a lot of side conversation going on. This has been an issue that's been very dear to me. I've debated it for a number of years. I brought this bill before you for a number of years because I so firmly believe in it. It is amazing to me that someone would take the position that because it's not that much money, it's not worth it. It's great to have the luxury of saying whatever amount it is, it's not worth doing it. For those families that are literally changing their babies' diapers in grocery stores because they can't afford diapers, it's nice that you say whatever we saved was not worth it. It's not as simple as that. I don't understand. We just had a debate on the Equal Rights Amendment where we said it's about the babies. It's about the babies. As Senator Barrow said in committee when we had it in finance, Senator Mizell used to run daycare facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, you have parents that can't take their kids to the day school because they don't have diapers. Think about that in the economy. If you have a working parent who can't afford diapers, so she has to stay home with her child, how much does that cost us? More than 67 cents. Don't sit up here and talk to us about how important babies are to this state, how important it is to protect the rights of people that have babies, and then say, when it's our time to make sure they can afford diapers, it's too much. The level of hypocrisy is staggering. And we are going to vote this year on new exemptions of things. I will count on reminding you on how you vote on whether women should pay for tampons and whether single families, small families should have diapers to bring their children to daycare. Thank you.
And then I noticed that the number of pregnant women went up from like 9,200 in November to 10,700 in March.
Yeah, and that's not an unusual fluctuation.
It's not.
No.
So it could go down by as much. I mean, I'm like just trying to understand, why are more people getting pregnant?
Could be time of year, I don't know. Mardi Gras, I don't know. I'm told not to go there.
Okay.
There are spike year periods, though.
Okay.